unsacred nature of entrepreneurship. Okay, no more bad jokes. I would like to introduce you to my friend Domen Kert. I had a conversation with him a few weeks ago, very philosophical, very deep, even spiritual, about the concepts connected to entrepreneurship. We talked about emotions, we talked about burnout, we talked about what is entrepreneurship and why, if it is so tough, are we still calling ourselves entrepreneurs. This is an invitation for you to participate in this conversation. Listen to it, take notes, and be sure of sending us your comments and your questions. This was a fantastic, wonderful, happy conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I'm not planning to make any introduction or welcome people or nothing like that. So I'm basically going to edit out 80% of the conversation. But as I was telling you before, I am quite surprised with a message that you sent me telling that you are not 100% sure if what you really care about is entrepreneurship, right? So just for having a bit of context, I was talking with Domen a few days ago, and I sent him some questions that he replied on text. But although the answers are great, I couldn't find Domen. The spirit of Domen was missing. And so then I sent him a message, and he replied. So did you find in the idea of entrepreneurship? Are you disappointed with something about entrepreneurship? What is your position?
Yeah. Um, I think the first thing starts with why I even started with this whole marketing business entrepreneurship 10, 15 years ago. And that is basically why I'm in it right now. The whole narrative that I have of why I started with business. Why didn't I go to, I don't know, a veterinary school or something else, art, for example, or be a translator? I started with business because of a very specific narrative, and maybe I'm still living out that narrative, and I've called many times on it, and I'm still in it because maybe I feel like that it's something to overcome, right? Or I'm just not finding anything else in terms of what I am doing with my career or profession and stuff like that. And maybe when you said that and I looked at the answers, I the truth came out pouring like a in a wave, like
So
maybe that's
So what's the truth? I mean, what's the truth of entrepreneurship for you, and what's the truth about what you do for entrepreneurs?
yeah. So again, to the narrative, why I started, my big desire since I was very little or a teenager was to earn a lot of money, to be very rich, right? Uh, and that's why I was so eager in my 20s and first 5 6 years of my 20s to get somewhere, to be successful, to be a businessman, to be a successful businessman, uh, because of a narrative I had from my childhood, that that was what it meant to me, entrepreneurship, until for a very long time. And then when this narrative kind of cracked a little bit, I was, for the past 5 years, I've been, so what's my motivation here? If it's not to be this mega success, this megalomaniac vision of a successful person in business, having a big business and so on, then, what is it? And I've been searching for that for the past 5 6 years, and I haven't really. I found some certain answers, but what it means to me, entrepreneurship, or why am I in this field? Why am I not petting dogs? Something else. Why am I? I'm not caring for people in a nursery or something. You know?
Because I know you very well, I think,
Yeah,
and you care about people,
yeah, I do. I do.
right? So obviously, there is something in the world of entrepreneurship
Yeah.
that is still giving you, right? So you enter into the world of entrepreneurship because of an assumption that is now an old assumption,
Yeah.
and you are probably in the process of forming up a new
Yeah.
narrative,
Yeah.
right? So, what is the world of entrepreneurship and startups giving you that keeps you still there? Because otherwise, you could end up a monk and be at the top of a mountain or God knows what, right?
Exactly. This is the crux of the situation. This is my past 6 years. Is this two extremes of being in the world or just leaving the world, just being a monk, like you said, on top of the mountain and just blissed out or whatever. I tried that a little bit, and I don't think that's the way either. So it's both extremes. Don't work. Either just being too in the game or just opt out, right? uh, what it gives me right now, I guess I like, in terms of people, like you said, I like people. I like, that's so generic. I love it when people succeed. If I can, give anything, if I do mentorships or advisories, I love when there's this moment of, okay, I was able to give some clarity to you, help you understand something better, that'll help you succeed, not just financially, but maybe in life in general. I guess that's one of the reasons. The second reason is certainly inertia. So, you're doing this for 10 years. Every year it's getting more difficult to do something else because I've already invested 10 years into this field. So I've got experience here, I've got the know how, I've got the connections. Anywhere else, I'm just nobody. I'm I would start from scratch zero. From zero, and I would need to build up the whole network and expertise. I need to prove myself again, which it took me now 10 years to get into certain circles and get certain certificates, if you will, physical ones, and just those, being a part of certain groups and accelerators. It took a lot of time and
But
effort.
isn't entrepreneurship actually about challenging yourself? Because I'm thinking, right, on what you
Yeah.
just said. Uh, and I was an IT person, as you know, for decades.
Yeah.
And then I went to the US, and when deciding to return to Europe 2 years after this adventure in New York, uh, I said, okay, I'm returning, but I'm not continuing with the IT world.
Yeah.
And I have to find out something else in me. I
Yeah.
wanted to see if I was missing some potential,
Yeah.
if the world of IT was actually blinding me from some other aspect of myself that could be uh, better or more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Uh, and you are right. I had to take, I mean, 10 years have passed and I'm still not in the position where I was in the world of IT,
Yeah.
right? So,
Okay.
so it costs time, but I
Yeah.
can tell you that I found what I wanted. That is a different path and
Yeah.
the confidence of knowing that it is possible, that you can actually change completely,
Yeah.
and so the question is, isn't it entrepreneurship about challenging yourself?
For sure. I mean, because you need to create something like a business or a project or what you're doing or what I'm doing. You can't really somehow stay in the past and just keep on doing the same thing. So if you need to do something new, then that's a challenge to the status quo. And like you wrote in your recent article, one of the agendas of fear is not to change. And that's, I was just recently thinking about this, that when I was 2021, I was hungry. I was hungry. I needed to prove myself to me or to the world. I needed, all these narratives that some of them have now come true, and I'm because I may not have new narratives yet, May not be a north star for me to follow, right? So it's like my old self is still crumbling in a way. Like one self of me, so this one persona is still, it's just been shattered apart years ago, and it's still being shattered, and something new has been growing. And several personas have been shattered, in fact, not just one. It's not just one, right? So now I'm still in this shattering moment where it's taking a long time, more than I would ever think years past, right? But it was just like it was a hammer, and but the effect is still happening. And in a way, I'm just going with the flow. I'm not particularly like against what I'm doing currently, or I'm like suffering or something. I like it actually. I when I work, I play. So those are indicators that my mind is telling me something that, there's two things. My mind may be telling me lies, saying, hey, this is not what you should be doing. You don't really care about this, right? It's bullshit, blah 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 blah, right? When this might just be the ego part that's trying to derail or self-sabotage, where in fact, if you follow the feeling, if I'm in flow and I do something, then that's a very positive indication that that's okay what you're doing right now. And also, I've realized one thing, that I've also decreased in the last years, decreased the importance of what I do in this world. That my value is not from what I do. It's just my value is zero. Sum zero. It's a it's the sum is zero. My value is zero, which is the best number. Even if I don't do anything, if I stare at the void, the stars, it's fine. It's not like I need to prove anything to anybody anymore. Uh, so I think I'm at the right spot, doing exactly what I'm doing right
Might
now.
be that your mind is telling you something that you, I mean, maybe you are interpreting your mind in the not the wrong way, but in a different way, let's say. Maybe
Yeah,
your mind is telling, I dislike terribly that exists in the world of entrepreneurship, but I love being of help, and
yeah,
the
yeah. That's
area of entrepreneurship is just fantastic place where I can play
yeah.
the game.
That's great. I think you nailed the, you know, you nailed it. I think,
Right, because I mean it sounds to me obvious. The past time you were giving me advice about how to write some stuff,
yeah,
and that was like illuminating, that was like brilliant. Inside of me I was, how the hell this guy gets so clear what needs to be said, and how am I doing? It's so complicated to understand what I'm trying to say, right? So obviously there's a strength on your side.
yeah,
And actually you put me down from the bus of social media is crap, right? Because I mean it is crap,
yeah.
but it is still a tool that can be used.
It can be crap.
In my case, what you said to me is, if you want your impact to scale up,
Yeah,
this is a
yeah.
tool that you can use.
Because
So
it's your
so you will have to
duty.
adapt it to it,
Yeah,
right?
I said it's your duty to do it to your purpose. So
Exactly,
you don't have a
yeah,
choice. You have to do it
yeah.
in this way.
Exactly. So, okay, then we are having a fantastic a conclusion to this first part, right? Because what we're finding out
Yeah,
is that indeed entrepreneurship is the area of your expertise, is an area that you enjoy,
yeah,
although there are things that you dislike. And
yeah.
I think we talked in the past about what a friend of me, Michael, said about
Mm-hmm.
building your face,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
And
This I
and
think about this a lot.
so actually building your face in this case is saying,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But this is the other part, what I'm doing is not. So now I would love to know your perspective on entrepreneurship and
Mm-hmm.
burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because one of the things that I know you are trying to do
Yeah.
is supporting people to use entrepreneurship as a tool for personal development,
Mm-hmm.
or a tactic for personal development.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, the opposite of personal development, it can be burnout or tension or anxiety or depression or disappointment, something that we entrepreneurs we are actually very familiar with.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
What did I write in the answer? I think it was our focus is we're focusing on the wrong things. Our perspective is warped. I think that was my that we need to
uh,
what Leonardo da Vinci said. We need to learn how to see.
this is what you wrote: perspective.
Hmm.
We're focusing on the wrong things. First,
Hmm.
as Leonardo da Vinci said, we need to learn how to see,
Yeah,
realize that everything connects to everything else.
yeah,
Everything else will divulge itself naturally from here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So what I meant with this is basically that when we're creeping towards burnout, there's a narrative in us that we keep feeding it, and it keeps feeding this frenzy we have. This if I work 10 hours a day, it's almost a mania, and the focus and the narrative is underlying could be that I'm trying to prove my value to the world, to myself, to my mother, to my father. It's usually not the world. It's usually a couple of people that for us represents the world. Usually it's just the mother and the father figure. And because of this narrative, we keep pushing and pushing that boulder up the rock, up the mountain, like what's Sisyphus or I don't know what's that character, Greek character. It keeps rolling back down. So pushing up the boulder up the mountain because we put too much tension towards that goal, and in a way, very physically, we forget to breathe. Physically, we forget to breathe, but mentally, we also forget to breathe. So when we're tense, right, the body is getting tense, the mind is tense, and then obviously we're gonna burn out and get sick in all sorts of ways and lose energy. And when our energy is lower, then we're in this burnout level. And if we, because we're kind of using adrenaline to fuel this frenzy, and adrenaline runs out sooner or later, and then you fall down to a level that's way the level you were at before. And it's because we put way too much weight to the goal that we're trying to achieve. It's like, hey, just calm down, man. Have a little perspective. You're gonna die, very soon, actually. So,
So what you are saying is, so far what I'm listening is that uh, we create some assumptions.
mhm.
We buy the concept that
Yeah,
working a lot is what you need to do in order to succeed.
yeah.
We find reasons to feel cool by
Mm,
working hard because that actually validates the
yeah,
expectation from those paternal or maternal figures, or society itself, whatever it is.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and that pushes us to ultra focus on specific goals.
Yeah, yeah. It's this narrative. It's like a wheel. It keeps on turning, and we never get there, uh, because of for some underlying psychological reasons, programs.
Right. So what do we do? Because actually, it would be awesome if we manage to minimize the amount of burnout among entrepreneurs. And
Yeah.
as I know that you care about people, what would you say to startups or groups of entrepreneurs that are actually having that belief that they are as more their work as cooler they are?
Yeah. So for the number one word for me is awareness and understanding. It's understanding, for one, this cultural thing that's happening in terms of hustling and hard work, that's becoming cool. That you're a part of this wave and this motion of being cool if you work. It's like a band. You're in a startup. It's a band. And you're hustling. You're grinding. That's cool. High fives and so on. That's awareness of this thing. The second thing is awareness of your inner being, is awareness of your, like I said in one of the questions, instead of reading business books, I think business people especially, should be reading spiritual books. If we're going to divide the business section here and here's the spiritual, for example, going here actually, whilst spiritual people should be reading business books to kind of gap bring the divide closer together, because it's all one thing. So having awareness of what's happening inside you, what's really fueling you, your motivations, your desires, and so on.
So then I think we have a perfect connection with another of the questions I made
Yeah.
you in the written survey is how do you define entrepreneurship? Because
Mhm.
let me say it in a different way. What
Mhm.
is entrepreneurship? Why are we playing that game? What because you are talking about these entrepreneurs challenging themselves,
Yeah.
burning out until they learn that there's no need to burn out.
Yeah.
So what it is?
Well, I think it's several things. One is that we as human beings have some sort of itch. We can't just be still. There's some itch in us, and that might be beyond our psychological makeup, maybe genetical even. This itch to advance towards the frontier forever, ad infinitum, no end in sight. Uh, that might be a reason that's more ingrained, deeper, is like a sexual drive, or like the drive to re- recreate, no, not
Procreate.
reproduce yourself and so on. That might be much deeper than we can ever explain. But there's also like simpler explanations. There's, this, we could use theological terminology. We could use Christian theology, or Catholic. No, Christian. We could use the seven deadly sins, right? We could use greed as an example. Right? Greed is certainly a driver of entrepreneurship as well, as is pride and even laziness, because laziness has all of these have different extremes. An extreme of laziness is actually overworking, whilst the other one is not working enough, because the core belief is I'm not creative enough. So if I'm not creative enough, I either won't do anything or I will overcommit. So that's a major driver for startup founders and entrepreneurs. I'll work because I don't believe I'm creative enough to create systems that'll build this thing. Um, so these are some.
But to the question, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah,
but to the question,
yeah,
is then entrepreneurship a path for showing all our dysfunction? Because right, we see all what is wrong,
yeah,
in our modern way of being.
yeah,
So then why are we there? So what is entrepreneurship if what happens while we exercise our entrepreneurial spirit, our drive,
yeah.
uh, uh, actually reveals so many dysfunction or so much dysfunction?
Why are we doing it still if it reveals our dysfunctions, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what it is then. So
yeah,
Entrep- if we describe entrepreneurship as a practice that connects us with our, I don't know, creative power
yeah,
and our business needs or income needs or
yeah,
economic needs,
yeah.
uh, uh, why are we doing it if it causes so much
Yeah, yeah.
suffering?
If it's unpleasurable in a way to ourselves,
Yeah,
yeah. Maybe there's an equation here. Maybe there's two forces, right? One is the inertia force. I'm not gonna do it because of these reasons. But there's the other part that says I'm going to do it for these reasons. Could be greed, could be curiosity, which is a part of, could be a part of greed as well. Curiosity, right? Greed for knowledge, thirst for new things. And then if this one is stronger enough, then we're gonna do it even if the pain is there, because we have a narrative that says if I'm doing it because of XYZ, and I'm gonna go through this pain because of it. And there's this saying, I don't know who said it, but it's that if we have a strong enough why, we can. I think it was Nietzsche. If we have a strong enough why, we can endure almost any how. Imagine people in concentration camps in the World War II. They were, I mean, if you read Viktor Frankl's book, The Meaning of Existence, or something like that, here, he says that it was this some sort of reason to hang on, for 3 years of suffering that's you can't even equate to anything we go through these days, not even by a million. Uh, that this why was good enough.
But that
Uh,
why was spontaneous, right? Because actually they were trapped in it. But actually, the majority of entrepreneurs these days are signing up to.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. They're opting into it
yeah,
because it's, of course, it's another narrative. Why should you opt in? Hey, there's riches and money to be earned, and to be cool, and to be signaling, right? Signaling is very important. You signal to your to people that you're important these days. So we can go back to these biological things instilled in us. It's not that you're powerful these days anymore. It's that you're either rich, or you're cool, or you're doing something nice. That'll attract your partner, female or male, or female or male, whatever. Uh, so there's all these different things that, because we can't ever know our brain and our makeup, right? We may think we know some of the things, but the totality of ourselves is hidden to us. So what really pulls the puppet that you are? You may justify and go back and meditate and go, hypnosis and so on, go very deep, but you may still never find the very reason why you're doing something, and you're thinking it's your choice, when in fact it might not be your choice at all.
there's one author. His name is John O'Donoghue. I
Hmm.
don't know how to pronounce it, O'Donoghue or O'Donoghue, something
Yeah.
like that. He wrote a book called Anamkara.
Hmm.
Fantastic book, and there he describes an emptiness inside of the persons, I mean of every human,
Yeah.
and that emptiness is or that vacuum
Yeah.
within is what we call a drive. Is a space that we want to fill, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we don't
Yeah.
know really what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
defined it, so we're constantly looking for it, and it always manifests in a different way. So you feel in love, you think that now you are complete, so she's your half orange or apple, whatever you are, according to which country you are. You can choose the fruit. In Peru is bananas. uh, half banana, no, that doesn't sound right. uh, so well, you find that thing that fills that space, but it is just for a while, and
Yeah.
and then the space grows again, and you are going towards the other thing. And actually he prays to keep having that empty space, because that is being a human.
Hmm.
And that's very interesting, because he's making a difference here. This is an emptiness that is not the ego.
Hmm.
So the ego wants you to do stuff
Yeah.
like succeeding or getting the money or buying the new car.
Yeah.
So it's very much focused on external signals, as you call it,
Hmm.
right? While the empty space is pushing us to look for something else.
For greater something
Not
beyond.
nothing doesn't have to be greater.
Hmm.
Maybe that emptiness is calling you today to go outside to the garden and smell the roses.
Okay, so this could be like intuition in a way. Is
Kind
it
of. I don't
kind?
know. And it looks like we are pretty confused.
Yeah.
And from what I heard you saying, I would conclude that entrepreneurship is a scenario
Yeah.
where actually adults play building themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
So
game.
is the Lego
Yeah.
is the Lego of the adult world.
Absolutely. I view the world in very real fashion, in this game theory way. It's all a game that we play from kids to adulthood. Adulthood, just the stakes are higher when you grow up, right? We introduce money, so it's more complex. And we introduce various countries and various roles. So if you go to the Hindu philosophy of the whole Leela, the whole play, right? That the world is play, then this just fits together. That it's a play that we really want to play. That otherwise, we'd be bored to tears in this world. We sort of play all these games, relationships. If we break up, we buy a car, we have a crisis, we get rich, we get poor. All these games, for some reason, that is just, it's a play of like a play on the theater of life. And what else are you gonna do? Are you just gonna sit by a tree and eat apples all day?
Yeah, there's a moment when the bliss of eating the apples from your own tree is
Yeah,
over, and that
yeah,
emptiness
yeah,
calls you to do something
yeah,
again.
yeah,
Right? So actually, this is so interesting because do you remember we talked in the past about that question that is so powerful? That is, are you willing to accept the price of being who you really are? And to me, for example, that price is not working for a big company, and having a constant up and down in terms of income, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I just can't do it. I want to get the bicycle. I just want to know that I can go out to the garden if I feel like to.
yeah,
So any traditional job would kick my butt, right? But so the point that I'm trying to do is, if each one of us have a price to pay for being who we really are,
yeah,
and facing this dysfunction, this human dysfunctional behavior that we have,
yeah,
that is being, I don't know, confused
yeah,
about what we want and how to achieve it.
yeah,
If entrepreneurship is a path to know ourselves, and that's why we challenge ourselves, so then there's nothing wrong on suffering, right? So basically what we need to acknowledge is that we are suffering, and that we need to do something with that suffering.
yeah,
It's kind of capital, right?
yeah.
So
Suffering capital.
yeah, so it is, maybe it's like if we talk about the bank account, is like going in minus, right? We're
Yeah,
overdrafted. And what we need to do is to sit down and to say, okay, what is producing this suffering?
hmm,
Try to go deep, right?
yeah,
So try to go a bit philosophical, uh, i- uh, and explore our emotions, not only the famous facts,
yeah,
and come up with conclusions that can help us see better the next time,
yeah,
right? And that might be a path towards less stress, more joy, but no way a path to avoid suffering. So
yeah,
actually, we
yeah,
learn something new, and then we explore something else, and we get into another dysfunctional
yeah,
part of our
yeah,
psyche, and
yeah.
then we can start watching that the dysfunction, as I'm calling it, is not really dysfunction. It is just navigating.
That's what I was thinking. Either is it a feature, or is it a bug, right?
Yeah,
Our conclusion here could be that it's a feature, not a bug. Of the
exactly. It can be a how they call it, a hidden no, a hidden blessing
Okay.
or something like that. So
Oh yeah, yeah, a hidden a blessing in disguise.
exactly, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
expression.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And another thought came to me is that suffering seems to be a feedback loop. We
Can you elaborate?
hmm?
Can you
Sorry.
elaborate?
Yeah, so feedback loop, it gives us feedback to where it hurts, and this way we can fix it. It's like a self-repairing mechanism. It's like the whoever created us, whatever that entity is, implemented in us, because we are it, the same thing as it, what created a feedback loop. So he it whatever, and we can improve together. It's like a system that keeps on improving itself.
You
And
know
also
where is
because
the
So I
You
just
know
want to.
where's the limit of that?
Yeah, yeah.
When we start blaming others.
Then the feedback loop gets distorted, and I feel suffering, and it's your fault,
Exactly.
and that's when this is not working.
And
It's gonna
then we
go
start
back.
asking ourselves, uh, why do I have to solve this shit if you are making the problem?
Yeah,
If you are guilty for this, why do I have to suffer?
yeah,
Right? And but an answer came a few days ago to me.
yeah.
It's a bit crazy, okay? It is ultra philosophical, I would say,
Great. The far
but let's
better.
say it anyway. The thing is that we believe that our identity is this person,
Yeah,
and that's why we find it so easy to blame others or the circumstances or whatever that is happening around us.
yeah.
And it's the perfect strategy because we victimize ourselves instead of taking responsibility.
Hmm.
But when we extend that identity, towards others, right? Then we cannot blame them because actually
That's
it
great.
is me,
That's amazing.
right? So the other persons that I'm normally blaming for something that makes me suffer,
Yeah,
right? They are responsible of their own things, and actually they are responsible of their own suffering, as I think.
yeah,
But I am responsible of the suffering they cause to me,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And because through that I know what I like, what I dislike, and what can I do about it.
Mm. It's a mirror.
It is a mirror. It is, I mean, we can call it a mirror
Yeah,
because we think that it's external.
yeah.
But if I said before, if we really extend our concept of
Then it's
who am
not a mirror.
I,
Yeah,
and for all those persons that are thinking, okay, these guys are smoking something heavy, the thing is that having the concept of me as the inside of this body
mm.
is actually very limiting because the person and the perception, so whatever whoever you want to blame, okay, you're perceiving that person, right? uh, uh, Actually the interpretation of that perception is created by you.
It's not actually that person.
Exactly. So let's imagine that you dislike, I don't know, your father or your mother telling you this or that.
Yeah,
Okay. How come that if they say the same thing to your siblings, they do not care,
different reaction.
right? So, but if they said this to me, I get affected.
Yeah,
Okay. So, but then I bring the neighbor, and
yeah.
the neighbor said exactly the same thing to me. When I don't care.
Yes.
So what happens is that we are not offended by the person,
Yeah.
but what we do. So how do we interpret the message that we are perceiving? So
Yes.
basically, I am responsible,
Yeah.
for what I'm making out of it.
Yeah.
So that image of my father, of my mother, of my wife, of or my neighbor, whatever, is actually, it can be interpreted as an extension of me. So if my mother is telling this to me that bothers me,
Yeah.
what does it mean? It means that I actually dislike this or that. And when I know that I dislike it, we we can imagine this as a bar with extremes,
Mm-hmm.
and I can make a line here. I am somewhere in this bar,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
So going towards one pole or the other,
Spectrum.
but I am in that bar. So if I dislike mediocrity and I go towards perfectionism,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going towards perfectionism because I know I can be a mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
I'm a
reflecting.
mediocre.
Yeah.
I'm I have the potential.
So that's pushing. That belief is pushing you towards, or that fact is
Exactly. So
pushing
then
you.
when I see mediocre people, I react against.
Of course, because you're afraid of your own mediocrity, and
Exactly.
you're projecting.
Exactly. And that might explain why we have more complicated relationships with the people we care the most.
Absolutely, they can hurt us the most.
Exactly, because we're
Because
closer to them, we're more similar to them.
yeah, and
But
our
it just happens that they are in different parts of this bar, of
yeah,
this, right?
some great points here. I think the responsibility before you said I wrote down responsibility. I love how Sadhguru talks about responsibility in a way that even if something happens on the other end of the world, it's your responsibility, but not that it's your fault. It's your responsibility. It's because it's happening in your perception. Just like you say, if something's happening, if you offend me, it's my responsibility. It's not yours. You're just I'm perceiving you, and then the whole thing. Why, let's say, the mother is, or your wife. Why, if she says something and your as another person is not offended, you are offended, and then if this same thing is said by another person that is not your wife, you are not offended. That means my perception of this person is somehow we're giving that person some sort of importance in our life. Hence, they can hurt us,
Have
and
you heard that? So you see this couple of little kids that are a girl and a boy, and they are fighting,
yeah.
and someone says, "Oh, probably they are in love. Probably they love each other." So this, and if you see the same thing in youngsters, that's pure sexual tension,
Yeah,
or right.
yeah.
So actually, is we are talking about the same thing. So
Hmm.
they get pissed off at the other
Yeah,
because they see themselves on them,
yeah,
but they disapprove of some things because they are like that,
yeah.
but they are just in a different space of the bar, in a different percentage of the, I don't know how to call this, I don't. So this bar
And the bar is a spectrum.
spectrum,
Yeah,
that's brilliant.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So yeah.
And we're also personally invested in other people. The closer they are, the closer. So I see that I often try to somehow convince my fiance in certain things that I wouldn't try to convince a friend or someone else, as if as if she's me and I'm trying to change her because to make her fit my own mentality or something. Whereas I don't do
Exactly.
that with
And,
you.
and then what you are not finding out
Yeah,
is that the reason why you want to change
yeah.
her,
It's because
right, is because both of you are at a different level of the spectrum of the same thing. And
Right.
and that's why you are together.
So either it's an extreme or just yeah, I get it.
It doesn't have to be in
Yeah,
any
yeah.
extreme.
So
It's a different value.
the polarities are at the most extreme. Then it can be very close, but usually the bigger discrepancy that there is, the more extreme you are. I'm yes, she's no. Biggest discrepancy. Maybe I'm a little yes, she's a little no. We're already closer.
Correct. But then you see that that person, in this case your couple,
Yeah,
is an extension of yourself, and your judgment
yeah,
to her is a judgment to yourself, because
yeah,
what you want to avoid
yeah.
is being like that, is being in that level of the spectrum, right? So when I was a little kid, bless you,
Thank
I my room was a complete disaster.
you. Mm-hmm.
Now my room is not such a disaster, and I'm much more organized than before.
Yep.
Okay, but if I see the disorder that my wife or my kids are doing, I explode.
It bothers you a lot. Yeah. Who taught? What was your mother like to you in terms of, or your father in terms of your messiness?
My father was completely organized and disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was less disciplined, less organized, but she was a doer,
Yeah.
right? So she would care that the things are done. But my father was going to be always dissatisfied,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and obviously, I am in between both of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And now that my children are teens, and they complain about me or they tell me that I am like this or like that,
Yeah.
I said, "Oh my God, they are like me, but with different values, and they have the I don't know, the different aspects is
Yeah.
kind of a division between how Tatiana is and how I am,
Yeah.
right? And they complain about both of us, of course,
Yeah.
right? Because actually they are like us. They are like us, but they are just at different level in the spectrum of whichever aspect. So when we learn to see
Yeah.
that what we are looking at is ourselves, so it's an extended perception of who we are,
I want to hit on this as well.
right?
Yeah.
Then there's no more problem.
Uh, if you're familiar with this guy, Neil Donald Walsh, he has a book 20, 30 years ago. He wrote this Conversations with God. And
Yeah.
one thing I remember, a couple of things I remember from the book. One thing is this thing that if we need to redefine I to include everything, not just people, but everything, nature, the universe, everything. And if this becomes the extended I, then you'll never hurt someone else because you won't hurt yourself.
100%. And you see, okay, let me smoke this thing. So exactly, please, so that we are allowed to talk this level of of thing. Uh, I read somewhere in the past that life is like oh my God, the word just went out. When you have a kaleidoscope,
Yeah.
what is what you are looking at? It's like a pattern.
Yeah.
You can have also computer patterns or
Hmm.
algorithms that create patterns and look like living. It has
Yeah.
a name. Uh, oh man, let me think about that.
Patterns, computer patterns, kaleidoscope.
I just had the word a few seconds ago. Um, it's like a mathematical thing.
Pi.
Um,
Pi.
no,
Not
uh,
golden. No.
life is like
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like it keeps repeating itself. No.
yeah,
It's a. Jeez. Like a Fibonacci sequence.
okay, exactly. The Fibonacci is one of these things. Uh,
Yeah.
exactly that. So and we see this in nature everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So exactly, what is this called? Those patterns. It has a name.
Oh, this is phyllotaxis patterns.
Oh my God, no. Um, well, anyway, I might remember. So
Yeah.
uh, so which are the components of the patterns? I think that every person
Yeah.
is a component of the pattern,
Yes, exactly. So small.
right?
So it's this actually. This is the golden. It's 1 to 3 to 5 to 8, and goes in ad infinitum from smaller to
Exactly, and it
bigger.
always repeats in an exact way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. So
So
that's the pattern we're trying to name
okay,
here.
so this thing, this concept,
Yeah,
to me is a way of explaining who are you
yeah,
and who I am with respect to each other.
yeah,
Because right now I'm talking to you, right? So if if I have to define myself, and I respect what I said before, that I'm extending the concept of who I am, to include you
Yeah.
because the perception that I have of you actually is mine.
Is you. Yeah.
Okay. So Domen there is an aspect of Domen that I am creating
Yeah.
by the pure perception of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
An image.
So in my pattern, in my Fibonacci or whatever,
Yeah.
right, it's only me
Yeah.
and what I do with my perceptions. And I'm perceiving myself, I'm perceiving an extension of my identity,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I can definitely tell you, actually, I have a relationship with you.
Yeah.
We're friends, we're talking. So actually, indeed, you are part of the definition of who I am right now.
Yeah.
Okay. But from your perspective, I am, so what you perceive of me is part of your identity of yourself. So I am not there. There is an interpretation
Yeah.
that you get of who I am.
Which is just
So
a small part of who you really are.
exactly,
I'm translating some of your words and actions and how you look and all that, and it goes through my filter of my past and goes into me, and that's who I think you are. And it's so easy to
exactly,
confuse that that's you. You know, it's just
exactly.
almost
And
impossible.
and because we are talking, and we can prove that you are listening to
Yeah,
me, right?
yeah,
Uh, it is just a confluence of these two different universes,
yeah.
synchronized in space and time.
Fractal,
Fractals.
fractals. Yeah,
Exactly.
fractal pattern for God.
Exactly. That's the freaking word.
Yeah,
So I honestly think that could be a way of interpreting life, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And when you read the spiritual books and they say, no, you are one with everything, but
yeah,
then you say, come on, but what about this terrorist? Is that terrorist myself?
yeah,
Actually, yes,
yeah.
because
From,
the relationship that you create with that terrorist is the one that defines who you are.
and also subatomically, you know, on a particle
There's
level.
no disconnection.
There's no disconnection. I'm there, right there. We're the same material.
Yeah.
We're, if it's not even material, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
and if one of us would not be there, probably reality would not be the same,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So that's the example of the apple pie from me and the names. The guy from Cosmos.
Where is it? The cryptocosmos or something else?
No, Cosmos, the series.
Okay.
Carl Sagan.
Say, I had him on my tongue.
So Carl Sagan said, "What do you need for an apple pie?"
Yeah.
And the answer is, you need to invent the universe,
Oh.
right? Because actually, this is just incredible. To have the apple pie, you need the apples. To have the
Yeah.
apples, you need the tree. To have the tree, you need the soil. To have
Yeah.
the soil, you need the earth. To have the earth, you need the sun and the whole solar system. And to have the solar system, you need the whole universe. So
Yeah.
then the question is, what
Yeah.
happens
Yeah.
if that apple pie never existed?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to see that probably that tree never existed. You did,
Yeah.
everything goes
Yeah.
back and nothing exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically,
Interdependence.
what I believe is that exactly there is an interdependence, right? So if those persons didn't die in the past and those survived,
Yeah.
if that person didn't make the decision of rescuing or escaping with a girlfriend,
Yeah.
it is possible that I would not be here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the same thing, right? So if we need the earth for survival,
Yeah.
we need the entire rest of the universe,
Yeah.
and that means that we are the non plus ultra because they are, if time is linear, we
Yeah.
are the latest version of universe.
If
Up.
it was linear, right? But you know, just thinking, I think often about these things. Like at the same time, I'm alive and dead. at the very same time. I'm not existing yet, and I am already gone, and I am
Of
existing.
of course, because actually, if the fractal conversation
Yeah,
is somehow true,
yeah.
right? So I am you, you are me, they are me, they are you. Is everything is a different version of one thing, but
The-
every single a Fibonacci
yeah,
what is this
fractal
called, line or
sequence.
sequence?
Yeah.
Every single Fibonacci sequence thinks that is unique.
Yeah, but it's like the drop in the ocean. Well, the traditional sense of Fibonacci is that everything extends from the source out, right? And we're the source, but further out maybe. Out is even too much to discuss. But what I also wanted to say, where that I exist, even if it's just me, the person, this physical body is already gone because time is not linear. 2020, 30 has already happened. It's all happened. I'm just perceiving myself. So I'm at the same time. I think about these things. If I scratch this table right now, and then somebody is looking at this table currently, it already has that scratch. So let's say this book is already disintegrated. It's
Yes, but I see it in a different way.
okay.
There is this company called Chaos Pilots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what chaos is the an ocean of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but
Okay.
then Domen shows up with a boat and an oar, and is navigating, is piloting on that ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, so the chaos pilot is Domen, but the boat is his purpose, is his attention, is what he wants to experience. Is
Okay.
so I would think that what we do in, is not it happens in eternity,
Yes.
in timelessness.
Yes.
So that means that the future doesn't really exist and the past either.
Yeah.
What exists is all the possibilities in the present.
Like a map or infinite map with everything
Infinite. So
already
it means
printed.
that you scratched the table, you didn't scratch the table.
So yes, in this case, I'm always. I am always. You are all. Everything is always. But yeah, everything is just like a web as always. It's
Exactly. And you're just navigating. So whoever that you call me,
yeah.
right, is navigating one. So from possibility to possibility.
Okay.
And you perceive, because you have a brain, your brain perceives that continuity
Yeah.
as one thing,
Yeah.
right? So that's how I would. Wait a second.
I would like to add here that the role of philosophy is profound, and we should discard it, especially entrepreneurs who are so serious in their life in a way in a mission. Philosophy is a way to entangle or detangle us from this current reality and give us a different whiff of what else is there, and just
That's my wish.
put the track of the mind on a different level.
My wish is to provide alternatives
Yeah.
to other entrepreneurs
Yeah.
to think in different ways,
Yeah.
you know, and actually to integrate not only what they do
Hmm.
and what they think is right,
Yeah.
but also what they feel, you know.
So their whole selves, quote unquote, into their pursuit.
They need to integrate,
Yeah.
right? So the creativity, so what they do,
Yeah.
their emotional side, and their logical or um,
Rational.
rational part, right? And you were talking before about having multiple personas. that are
Mm,
developing
mm,
inside of each one of us, right? So what happens if you are developing and you don't want to see those other personas? Then you get stubborn with one of them,
yeah,
right? So you reject,
the most dominant one.
exactly, and then you reject all
Yeah,
these other aspects of you,
yeah,
that could open up to so many different possibilities and amazing experiences.
yeah. I think also we're going in a future where this is going to be easier to do, to have different, because of the technology and internet and so on. We can have different personas, so at different times we can have 2 hours on chat talking about football, and then we go to work for a DAO. For 3 hours we work on crypto, and then we're this father, then we go talk about serious things on another chat and so on. So it'll help us develop these different, use these different personalities, whereas before you went to this one physical location to work for 8 hours, you had to be this concrete one persona. If you diverge too much, it's weird for people. You didn't have the internet, so you had the same group of people. You went to football with them, so you had this football guy and you had this working guy and the father, maybe. But maybe you couldn't express your artist self and your geek self, and so on. So I love this aspect of the coming future that's already here, by the way. It's not the future, it's here.